For the first time in a few years, the 2025 Formula 1 season gave us a close battle for the title of World Drivers' Champion. The lead changed hands a few times between teammates Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri before a late charge from Mr. Verstappen kept things interesting towards the very end of the season. Ultimately, Lando Norris would secure the title at the finale in Abu Dhabi, but he did so by just a 2-point margin, which actually makes this the closest title battle ever. By percentage, I know that in 1984, Niki Lauda won it by just half a point, so you don't have to write the comment. You've already written the comment. Okay. And this got me thinking. With such a close decider for the title, would things have played out differently if Formula 1 used a different point system? Perhaps one from a previous year of Formula 1, or even some less conventional point systems. I've done a couple of these videos in the past talking about the 2021 and 2007 seasons, but now it's time to throw 2025 into the mix, jump into the wormhole, and find out who would be the world champion across all the different alternate realities of Formula 1. But before we do that, I want to tell you about the sponsor of today's video, Huel. It's a new year, which means there's a good chance some of you might be trying to make some changes to your diet and your health, because let's be honest, your diet last year was 90% oven, chips and energy drinks, wasn't it? It was, let's not lie to each other. I've personally been on a weight loss plan for a little while now. This is my actual weight chart, please ignore the Christmas spike, and one product that I use almost every day to help me with this is Huel. Huel make nutritionally complete, ultra convenient meals, and one meal from Huel is always 400 calories with a good helping of protein and a variety of vitamins, which makes a portion like this a perfect convenient breakfast on the way to work or a great pre-gym fuel up. You can get the high protein Huel Black recipe either as pre-made bottles or in powder form, so you can keep a bag like this at home and make a meal up whenever you need it. Personally, I like to keep a couple bags like this in the kitchen, and I use them for a lunch when I'm working after the gym. If you'd like to try Huel for the first time, the high protein starter kit is a perfect way to see what type and what flavor works for you, and it comes with a shaker, which is the perfect size for making up the powder. Super easy. If you'd like to check that out or any of the other products Huel has to offer, you can use my code MrV20 for 20% off if you're a new customer, or scan the QR code on the screen. That's MrV20, or head to huel.com/MrV20 or scan the QR code on the screen, which I'll leave there for a second while I try this chocolate peanut butter flavor, the only one I've not tried before. Quite hard to open a bottle when you're holding a microphone, I have to say. Saucy. Oh, that's actually really good, not gonna lie. Thank you to Huel for sponsoring this video and supporting the channel. Now, back in the wormhole. Huh? This is exactly where we started. I can tell my green screens apart. This is our current timeline. Well, I suppose before we move on to any weird point systems, we should probably recap what actually happened in 2025 for those of you who weren't paying attention. This was the point system used in Formula 1 this year. 25 points for a win, all the way down to 1 point for 10th place. Then, for the 6 sprint races this year, it's 8 points for a win, all the way down to 1 point for 8th place. As for the story of the season, we start out with a win each for our 3 championship contenders before Oscar Piastri goes on a run of good form, while Lando Norris keeps a close 2nd place with multiple wins and podiums of his own. Piastri would then hit a downturn in form, most notably including a lap 1 DNF in Azerbaijan, allowing Norris and Verstappen to take most of the remaining wins. In the end, we have 7 wins each for Norris and Piastri, and 2 for George Russell, and 8 wins for Max Verstappen. But when we apply the points to this, Lando Norris's better average finish means he clinches the title, 4-2-3 to 4-2-1. So that's what actually happened in our boring real world, but what if our world was just a little bit different? What other point systems could we be using? Okay, that's not a very big change at all, is it? In case you forgot, Formula 1 changed its point system for 2025, which means that just 1 year ago, things were a little different because we did have a bonus point for the fastest lap each weekend. Now obviously, if the bonus point was still here and the drivers knew about it, they probably would have tried a little harder to actually get the fastest lap each weekend. But as it stands, these were the fastest laps in 2025. Norris and Piastri both had 6 fastest laps on the year to Verstappen's 3, and so when we apply these bonus points to the championship table, we get the same thing. Lando Norris is still the champion. Okay, let's maybe see what happens with a bigger change. Let's head back to the 1990s, a time when Formula 1 had to go, where the winner of each race is given a medal, and then the season champion is just the person with the most medals, aka the most wins. That would also mean that our 2025 champion is Max Verstappen. even if he had retired the other 16 races that he didn't win. That doesn't quite sound right, does it? Well, speaking of things that don't quite sound right, did you know that NASCAR has a playoff system? We've covered this before, but I'm going to use it again because NASCAR has potentially the silliest championship structure of any motorsport there is. For those unfamiliar, for every race in the season, these points are given out at the end of the race, with 40 points for the winner, and then 35, 34, etc, etc. Then there are also 2 stages during the race at roughly the 1 quarter and halfway mark, and these points are given out to the top 10 cars as they cross the line at the end of whatever lap that may be. Then there's a bonus point for any car that happens to lead a race at any point during that race, and another bonus point for fastest lap, introduced in 2025. Then there's also a thing called your playoff bonus point, which is separate to your championship points. You earn 1 of these for a stage win and 5 of these for a race win, and these go to a different pot, which we'll talk about in a second. Most of the season works like a regular motorsport, just a series of races with people racking up championship points. But then we get to the playoffs. This is the last 10 races of the season, split into 3 rounds of 3 races, and then 1 final race to determine the champion. Only 16 drivers make it into the playoffs, and you might think it sounds weird to have an oval race with only 16 cars, but no, all the other cars are still there, they're just racing for fun, I guess. Is this fun? So to determine who gets into the playoffs, we first start by number of wins. If you get a couple wins in the regular season, even if you're terrible in all the other races, you're in. Then if we run out of drivers of wins, the rest of the playoff places are filled with drivers with the highest points totals. And obviously that's championship points totals, not playoff point totals. You thought your playoff points would determine if you go into the playoffs? Don't be silly. So then once we have our 16 drivers for the playoffs, we can begin our first round of 3 races, but not before we reset all of these drivers' points to 2,000 plus their playoff bonus points, plus some additional playoff bonus points for the drivers with the highest regular season points totals according to this table. Still following? Good. Each round of the playoffs works like a mini regular season, with 4 more drivers being eliminated each round. That means the rounds have 16, 12, and 8 drivers respectively, with just 4 going into the grand final. Obviously, the points are reset to 2,000, 3,000, and 4,000 each time, plus your playoff bonus points, which you do keep earning in the first and second round of the playoffs. Also, like before, the decider for qualification in the playoffs is first determined by wins, so any win in a playoff round means automatic qualification regardless of how bad your other 2 races go. Once we get down to the final 4, things are a little different. This time, points are reset to 5,000, but with no playoff bonus points, just a completely even playing field. Also, during this final race, these 4 drivers are ineligible for stage 1 and stage 2 bonus points. The only thing that matters is your position at the checkered flag. So that means that our champion is the driver from these 4 who finishes highest in the final race, even if they're P35, as long as the other drivers are behind them. This could, in theory, be the driver with the 16th highest point total from the regular season, and actually, in theory, you could win every race in the regular season, plus the first 9 races of the playoffs, but still not be the champion if you finish P2 in the final race. Is this a good system? Is it an entertaining system? Well, also kind of But regardless, we are still going to apply this system to Formula 1 2025, and actually it's not as simple as you might think, because our top 3 from real life could end up being eliminated in Azerbaijan or something silly like that. When I did this before for the 2021 season, I shortened the playoffs so it fit into a Formula 1 season better. But this time, I realized I need to go big or go home, so we are doing a full 10 race, 16 driver playoffs, because why not? Our regular season therefore runs until Hungary, and at the end of that race, adding up all the race points, stage points, race lead, and fastest lap bonus points, we get these standings. And believe me, this took a very long time to do by hand. Our drivers qualifying for the playoffs are, of course, Norris, Piastri, and Verstappen, all with a win in this period, and then the other 13 drivers with the highest points, which is, well, everyone except for Gasly, Lawson, Colapinto, Bortoleto, and Doohan. Our first round of the playoffs takes us to Zandvoort, Monza, and Baku, which means that Verstappen and Piastri auto-qualify for the next round due to their wins, and Ocon, Stroll, Alonso, and Hülkenberg are eliminated from contention. Points reset again as we go to Singapore, Kota, and Mexico, where Norris, Verstappen, and Russell earn automatic qualification from their wins. Tsunoda, Hadjar, and the 2 Williams drivers are knocked out this time, which means that our top 8 drivers going into the finals, that doesn't sound right, are Norris, Verstappen, Piastri, Russell, Leclerc, Hamilton, Antonelli, and Ollie Behrman, who clinched his spot with a strong drive around Mexico City. Our round of 8 sees a shocking twist as both Norris and Piastri are disqualified from earning any points in Las Vegas, meaning their championship hopes could be in jeopardy. Except Leclerc, Hamilton, and Behrman all had an early DNF in this round, and so basically allowed the McLarens to walk in. Kimi Antonelli almost managed to sneak into the championship 4, but ultimately failed to do so in Qatar. And so going into the final race, our 4 contenders are Lando Norris, Max Verstappen, Oscar Piastri, and George Russell. Yeah, it's just the top 4 from real life. We did all of this for nothing. For those of you who are paying attention, Max Verstappen did win the race in Abu Dhabi, and so he is the champion in this system. But I wanted to show this to see just how ridiculous a playoff system is in motorsport, because with just a couple extra DNFs at the wrong time, our top 4 could have been Leclerc, Hamilton, Antonelli, and Behrman, which would have meant that Kimi Andrea Antonelli would have been the World Drivers' Champion in his rookie season. Okay, time for another classic from a previous video. EEL. Yes, you heard me. EEL. EEL stands for everyone except last, which is kind of like winner stays on, but if we actually did a winner stays on system, only the winner from the first race would then be eligible for the championship, and that would make quite a boring season. The way this works is that every race, the last driver in the classification is disqualified from the championship, and so basically it's last man standing. The other drivers do still race even once they're disqualified, so we're not going to start getting into alternate realities like what if Antonelli never crashed into Leclerc? No, all the drivers are still there on track. Let's just say they're racing for points in some alternate second championship, maybe the Mohammed Ben Sulayem, well done, you drove very fast trophy. So it's very simple. Every race, the driver at the bottom of the classification, be that the last finisher on track, the first DNF, or in the case of Australia, Isaac Hadjar, who crashed in a formation lap, is disqualified from the championship and stops scoring points. This is pretty simple to work out throughout the season, except for one weird case. The second race of the season, the Chinese Grand Prix, because 3 drivers were disqualified. If 3 of them DNF'd, then it's easy, it's just whoever crashes out first. But when you're disqualified, it all happens at the same time. Which one goes out? I realised the only way to do this is for all of them to go out, and then I could have had a couple of races with no disqualifications so the championship still ends when it was supposed to, but I realised you've got to keep the pressure on these idiots to perform, and so we get right back to it with Stroll being knocked out in Japan. Some other notable exits are Doohan, who lasts the whole way till Miami, but is then knocked out of the championship and dropped by the team in the same weekend, rough time. Sainz, who typically does well in this format, but is knocked out in Austria when his car breaks down on the formation lap, and Behrman, who holds on until Hungary, making him the last rookie standing of the year. Going into the Dutch Grand Prix, surprise surprise, we got the same 4 guys fighting for the championship. But of these 4, Norris actually goes out first when his car picks up a smoking habit around Zandvoort. Russell would then put in a decent performance in Italy to finish P5, but ultimately would be eliminated as both Verstappen and Piastri were up on the podium. And then, in our championship decider in Azerbaijan, Piastri bins it on lap 1, handing the title to Verstappen. Nice one. We could order the rest of the table in the order they went out, but actually, I think it makes more sense to use their points they earned up until they went out, which means in this timeline, Piastri is P2 in the championship, 49 points ahead of Norris. Hamilton actually finishes ahead of Leclerc by 1 point, but their early exit means both of them are way down the table, below even people like Stroll. Esteban Ocon beats Carlos Sainz despite going out before him, a fact which deeply, deeply hurts my soul. And then the greatest tragedy in all of this. Despite lasting for 8 Grand Prix and 2 sprint races, Fernando Alonso finishes the season on 0 points. So here's a question, what do Formula 1 and the Eurovision Song Contest have in common? Is it that they're both European-based but nowadays global competitions run by obviously corrupt organisations who like to say they promote equality and inclusion while at the same time continuing to support countries and regimes with highly questionable human rights records? No, silly, it's that they both have funny point systems. I tried to apply the Eurovision system to the 2007 season back when I made that video, but at the time I mentioned it would be a lot better if Formula 1 had some kind of fan voting, and what do you know? Now it does! Points in Eurovision come from 2 equal batches, half from professional judges, which we are going to say is our race results, and the other half from fan voting, for which we are going to use the driver of the day. In actual Eurovision, both the judges and the fans from each country end up ranking their top 10 acts, or in our case drivers, and then these points are handed out. And so this tracks pretty well onto Formula 1. Every race, we're going to give out these points to the top 10 in the race and also the top 5 in driver of the day voting, because that's all that we have the data for. Oh, and one more thing though. In Eurovision, countries cannot give points to their own acts. We're going to do the same thing here and say drivers cannot earn points from their home races, and that's driver of the day and race points. In cases where drivers are ineligible, like Norris, Russell, Hamilton or Behrman at the British Grand Prix, we can shift all the other drivers' results up, meaning Hülkenberg now gets his first podium with a P2 behind Piastri. Not bad. In the unique case of Kimi Antonelli, who has 2 races in his home country, we're going to say he's only ineligible at the Italian Grand Prix, as that one is the whole country. And so he can still score points in Emilia-Romagna, but actually it doesn't really matter because that didn't go so well for him. When we start to go through the fan voting after the race results are added up, it becomes pretty obvious that some drivers are a lot more popular, and none more so than Max Verstappen, who picks up 192 fan votes on the season, easily handing him the World Drivers' Championship. Okay, so we've seen that in basically all of the normal Formula 1 point systems from the history of the sport, Norris holds on to his title, but then in all of the weirder systems, Verstappen always wins. I think we need one more point system as a kind of tiebreaker between the two, and I think we should use everybody's favourite, Scrabble. The rules of F1 Scrabble should be obvious, but in case they're not, it goes like this. You take the name of the event, removing the word Formula 1 but keeping any title sponsors, and then you line up the drivers in race classification order with the letters in those words. You then give the drivers the Scrabble score from those letters, and that's it. Easy peasy. Now, some people may say that this system is entirely random and completely based on luck. And they are correct. Obviously, not every letter scores the same points, and so you want to try and land on things like Q's, Z's, X's, J's, interesting letters like that. Races like the Qatar Airways Qatar Grand Prix or the Qatar Airways Azerbaijan Grand Prix therefore have some decent points to give out, if you can finish 1st, 14th or 20th, that is. Now, of course, the drivers didn't technically know that they were trying to score points in this system, but at the same time, they could have probably guessed I was going to make this video at this point, so if they weren't trying to aim for the good letters, that's on them. I'll first show you the championship positions 21 through 6, where we get some weird results, like Norris in P9 behind Tsunoda, and actually weirder still, Lance Stroll up in P7. But of course, these results mean our top 5 in the championship were, in alphabetical order, Behrman, Lawson, Leclerc, Piastri, and Max Verstappen. But how did the season play out? Much like real life, Piastri takes an early lead, but then most of the season is a close back and forth between Piastri, Leclerc, Lawson and Behrman. The only driver who lags behind is Max Verstappen up until the end of the European leg of the season. However, even if the other drivers weren't aware they were playing Scrabble, Max is always one step ahead. First places in Qatar and Azerbaijan land him 10 points each time, and along with some 4s in Brazil and Las Vegas, this rockets him to the head of the table and ultimately wins him the 2025 Scrabble Drivers' Championship. To win the game, first you have to know the rules of the game, and I think it's clear to see from all these weird point systems that no one knows the rules better than Max Verstappen. One final thing to note on the Scrabble season, which this graph didn't show, is the championship was actually led at times by Stroll, Tsunoda, Hamilton and Norris, but all of them fell out of the top 5 before the end. Honestly, if you ask me, this is a much more interesting championship battle graph than any Formula 1 season has produced in quite a few years, and so maybe it's time for Formula 1 to start considering the Mr. V Scrabble Championship for 2026. Would be fun. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you learned something. Okay, maybe not. But if you did, why not give the video a like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Thank you also to Huel for sponsoring this video and supporting the channel. If you'd like to check them out, use the code MrV20 for 20% off. See ya.